Hello, hi
Welcome,
Fleur. Thank you.
Smriti,
Thanks. Good to see you.
This is Nature Kenya's Wednesday morning bird walk.
Okay.
And
hello.
here's the group ready to go.
Great. Okay, so a good turnout for a Wednesday morning. Hello, everybody. All right, Fleur. So how exactly does this work? We're here at the museum. So what's the way forward?
We enjoy looking at birds and learning more about them. So we want to go outside and see as many birds as we can see. We go to different places, but today we're right here at the museum, and we have some museum scientists with us as well.
Okay.
And I have some binoculars for you, so
thank
you
you.
can see the birds better.
Definitely coming in handy for this. I should have perhaps been better prepared.
But binoculars will help you to see the detail.
Yes.
And also, when you're in a national park, then they really come in handy.
Of course. All right, let's get started. I'm looking forward to it.
Don't let me do all the talking. You know, you're also going to help me find the birds and point them out.
Well, Fleur, actually, I can spot something there. I don't know, someone may have already spotted it.
Yes, right on the top of the roof, there's a Hadada ibis. There are a number of water birds that have become very adjusted to urban life. And Hadada ibis might originally have been water birds, but now you find them in gardens everywhere. This is a really nice view because you can see the way the sun is shining on it. The wing is like purple on one side and green below. Now usually the bird looks just dull, but when the sun shines just right, you get that beautiful gloss.
It's almost as if it knows it's being filmed, posing for us perhaps.
Yeah, the birds here are used to people, so they're not very shy. So there are other birds that have become urbanized, really. The marabou storks, many years ago, you had to go to national parks to see them. And now they nest on the Uhuru Highway.
Oh, yeah.
The sacred ibis that were sacred to the ancient Egyptians, they're now all over town.
Okay.
So there are a number of water birds that are beginning to live with us.
What do people get out of these bird walks? I mean, it's beautiful watching them, but ultimately, why do people show up? I should ask them.
I have shown up for 45 years.
Wow.
Because I enjoy it.
Okay.
You know, I sit at my desk facing a computer all the other days.
Yeah.
And on Wednesday morning, I know that I'll get out in the field, I'll breathe fresh air,
Right.
I will see something beautiful, which is birds. I will see a green space, and Nairobi we are lucky, it has many green spaces. Right. So I come for the enjoyment, for the beauty of the birds, for the fun, and I enjoy sharing this with other people.
This is a parasitic bird. It's called a village indigo bird. It nests on others' bird nest. So that's where it lays their eggs.
That's an interesting bird to see. Can most people see it? You all have to plunge into the fence. It's a brood parasite, meaning that this is the male we're seeing. The female will lay her eggs in another bird's nest, in the nest of the firefinch. The male is brilliant blue-black.
Right.
The female is brownish with streaks on the head.
Okay.
The parent firefinches will raise the young indigo bird together with the young firefinches.
Okay. Wow.
So there's a lot to learn about the life history of birds.
Yeah.
They're not only beautiful to see, they're also quite interesting in their habits. We have been recording the birds we see, so that although we go for fun, we do have a record which may be useful someday, let's say in measuring climate change. Like I think in Nairobi we may have lost a few of the forest birds that used to be here, but we've probably gained some birds that were more dryland birds.
And why have we lost them?
Well, probably because of climate change. The forest birds have moved further up in altitude, and the dryland birds have come into Nairobi more. You can see a bird flying towards us. That is the black kite. So that's your everyday bird of prey in Nairobi.
Yeah.
You probably call them hawks. And hawk is not wrong. The whole family is the eagle, hawks, and so on. But that particular hawk we call a kite.
Right.
And that particular species we call a black kite, although it's brown.
Yeah.
You see them in Nairobi all the time. They can hunt, but they prefer to scavenge.
Okay.
So they're very fond of children's school lunches, picnic sites,
Yes.
places like that.
Fleur, why would you say that birds are important to us?
Well, they're important in many ways. First of all, we think every species is important. Today, where we're concerned about the health of our environment, birds are important as indicators. They're quite good at telling us whether the environment is in good condition. Once birds leave a certain area, then you'll know there's a reason why they've left while it's no longer suitable.
Right.
We always like to tell the story. Oh, there is the singing cisticola calling you, Smriti.
Oh,
Fairly deep inside the bushes. We usually say it says pretty, pretty.
but today it's saying Smriti.
That's right.
It's
Today
difficult to see,
calling
but we're
you.
looking in this shrub here. And how do you know that? Just based on your experience and based on the sound it makes?
The sound it makes.
Okay.
So this is part of the museum's botanic gardens.
You talked about the challenge in identifying birds. As a new bird watcher, how would I go about identifying birds?
You could start by just looking at the birds, making notes
Around
what they
you.
look like
Right.
to you.
So I suppose invest in binoculars and a bird guidebook.
A bird guidebook is really useful.
Yes.
And we have some bird guidebooks around. We can, here's one and here's another. Those are the two best ones.
Okay, so that's birds of Kenya and northern Tanzania and birds of East Africa.
At home, you can bring the birds close to you by putting out water.
Right.
They really like water.
Yes.
They can, I think birds can find their own food. We can walk down here if the birds are not cooperating.
What difference do birds make to the everyday lives of human beings?
Birds are very important, as I say, in keeping the balance of the environment. For
Yeah.
instance, most birds eat insects, so they help to keep the insects under control. So they're really important to us in that way.
Right.
In addition, many birds of prey eat rodents.
Okay.
So again, they're really important
Yeah.
in keeping down the rodent population. But I think right from the earliest days, birds have been companions of people,
Yeah.
and people enjoy being around them.
And I suppose just the beautiful sounds that they make. I mean, I woke up this morning and the first thing I heard was birds chirping, and it just brightens your day, doesn't it?
Exactly. So birds have been so much a part of our life. If you think of dances, art, music, so much of it
Culture
is
as
based
well.
on birds. So they're very much part of our culture. In every culture,
Food
you will
as
find
well,
that.
perhaps, if we talk
Oh,
of
yeah.
chickens,
Exactly.
turkeys.
We've domesticated birds, and here in Africa, it's the guinea fowl
Yes.
that's been domesticated. So they're important to us as food, as emblems of beauty and of flight, you know. Okay, now we can fly. But for many, many, many years, people wanted to fly
Yeah.
and couldn't. And of course, birds fly.
Yeah.
And in that sense, they give us a feeling of freedom. And if you look at so many traditions and folk tales, the birds are always messengers,
Yes.
giving messages to the heroes.
Yeah.
There are many things we look for. We look at what the birds do. That, to me, that's clue number one.
Okay.
What is the bird doing?
Right.
then you get the color, shape, and another clue, of course, is the call.
The nest, if you look,
Oh,
this
it's
is a
on the
female on
nest.
the nest.
Oh,
You can see the big tail.
fantastic. Oh, yes.
That way I was
And you
looking
can
for.
see how tiny the nest is.
I don't
The
know.
male.
Oh,
with
it's
the long
Yes,
tail.
it
Paradise flycatcher.
out and it's just
I
in the
didn't
nest.
realize that was a bird.
You see how tiny the nest is? It's a tiny little cup tied together with spider webs. And you can see the male with the long tail sitting on the nest. It just flew and the female came in.
Is that a bird there, or am I just seeing things? Are there two birds there, like within the on
There
the tree?
probably are, and but now you can see the
And-
challenge in showing to people what you see. Just
Wait, let me.
sometimes
Yes,
you
yes,
can
it
spend
is.
an hour explaining to someone where it is, and they still don't see it. I see two
I
yellow
see-
leaves, but that's not what you're looking at, is it?
It's on the branch, on the twigs. It's quite camouflaged, but it is moving.
Yes, all of us have been in an acacia woodland and said the bird there in the acacia.
Or in a green tree. Tree was green.
I think it's a bird now.
But now we can't see it, so that's the problem. That's why birding in forests, we usually don't see as many. It's not that there are fewer, it's that they are so much harder to see in forests, so much better at hiding.
It might just be a leaf.
That's the red-billed firefinch. So the singing cisticolas were making a lot of fuss about something. Sometimes when they make a fuss like that, it's because of perhaps a snake or a bird of prey. So if it's a bird of prey, we may be interested in seeing it. Is that a mouse bird? Okay, so the speckled mouse bird, I'm sure you've all seen. It's a bird with a long tail, and they sometimes eat our vegetables. So many people don't like them, but they're a very interesting bird. It's put in an order of its own, so in a very specialized group of birds because of the way their feet work. They can sort of scratch their nose and grab onto a piece of fruit at the same time. There's the speckled mouse bird now. But you see why it's called a mouse bird? The way it creeps through the bush, it's almost mouse-like. So this is the croton, the tree with the fairly big leaves. So there's the bird with the orange beak, the olive thrush. Orange beak, orange leg, orange below, but it likes to eat the wild olives. So that's why it's called the olive thrush. And then there's a bright yellow and black bird. It's a weaver, a baglafect weaver. And that is the common weaver in Nairobi. Birds are very much limited to certain habitats. But then in grassland, you would see entirely different birds.
Okay.
And then if you went into the mountain forest, you would see some of the same birds as we have here, some different ones.
Right.
And then if you went to where there was water, you would see more water birds. And that's why Nairobi has so many birds, because we have the grasslands in Nairobi National Park, we have the forest over most of Nairobi, we have gardens, we have wetlands. African harrier hawk flying in the blue sky above the casuarina tree, above the casuarina. So you see the wing shape and the tail shape are different from a kite. And then look for the white band across the tail. So first of all, the wings are longer and broader than a kite. The tail is broader, and the tail has a white band across it. And otherwise, it's a gray color with black edging. The tall eucalyptus are the favorite nesting sites for many of the birds of prey. So they have their value also. And I think the great sparrowhawk came to see if its nesting site in the eucalyptus was still there. But that was fantastic that we happened to be right there when it came in.
If you have a feather of a
Oh.
black kite, this might have dropped down, or it might be moulting, whereby they molt and replace the old feathers with the new one.
Okay.
So this is a white feather of a black kite because of their color. That's why we think it is the black kite feathers.
And you can see that one must have been a wing feather,
Yeah, it's a wing
because
feather.
you can see that it's built for strength.
Okay.
It's not a soft, fluffy feather to keep them warm.
Right.
It's really built for strength.
Okay.
So it's the one which they fold each another, and then they can fly.
Yeah.
They can
So
capture
the wing is made by having the feather just the right shape
Okay.
and then very strong muscles, of course,
Yeah.
to move the wing. But that's what enables them to fly.
So when we hear birds tweeting, what perhaps are they tweeting about? Do we have any idea about what they're saying?
Birds
Maybe?
have different kinds of calls. Like that one sounds rather an upset call. And earlier we had the two cisticolas really making harsh alarm calls. So at that point they tend to say danger,
Okay.
something's wrong. When they sing, to us it sounds beautiful. We
Yes.
think, oh, they're singing because they're happy.
Yeah.
Well, that may not be quite right.
Oh, really?
Maybe they sing because they're happy, but they're also advertising. They're
Okay.
saying, this is my land, this is where I'll build my nest.
Really?
Or they're saying to the females, I'm the best singer in the land.
Okay.
Or they are saying to other birds, don't come here, this is mine.
Right.
So they may be advertising territory or themselves.
Okay. Are birds in Kenya under threat? Are any of these species under threat?
Not the ones you'll see in Nairobi, probably, but yes, there are some birds under threat, and two groups mainly. Some birds live only in certain forests, such as the forests at the top of the Taita Hills, and those forests have been cut down, cleared, encroached, so they're
Right.
very, very small.
Right.
So these birds are under threat because their population is so small and their habitat is so limited. The other birds that have come under threat very recently, just in the last few years, are the vultures.
Yes.
Now, we used to take vultures for granted. They're all over, they're cleaning up after
Right.
the wild animals. We thought they were normal, and they're still normal in Nairobi National Park. But over most of Kenya, vultures are disappearing. Some of them have been poisoned when the herders poison an animal that's
Right.
been killed to kill the predators. Some of them have lost their habitat. Some of them may be caught for the wildlife trade. So the vultures are in danger. And one more bird has recently come into the danger list, which is the gray crowned crane.
Okay.
That lovely bird, in fact, it's the emblem of Nairobi.
Yes.
You know the Nairobi
Yes.
flags have a crowned crane on them. And in Nairobi, they're still doing fine. But in Western Kenya and Uganda, the population has really crashed.
Why?
So I think loss of habitat.
Okay.
And they nest on the ground. So when they nest on the ground, if they nest near a village, maybe the dogs can catch them, or they're at much more risk than the birds that might nest high in the trees.
Right. And Fleur, why do you do this? You mentioned that you've done this for 45 years, and having walked around with you, you know the call of a bird, or you can easily identify a bird. How did you get involved in bird watching?
Well, through similar groups,
Okay.
yes. I also joined other groups, not in Nairobi, but I joined other groups
Yeah.
and caught their enthusiasm. And that's how I started.
What inspired you, though?
I've always loved nature. I think many of us start as children, loving nature.
All right, Fleur, thank you so much. That's, of course, your story. But in just a moment, I'm going to, in fact, speak to some of these bird watchers here because a good number of them have turned out. I'd like to know what really motivates them to come on these bird walks. Why do you come on these bird walks?
I normally come to the bird walks to enjoy or to get connected with nature and also to assist in identifying the birds.
For me, birding is therapeutical and it's a way of connecting with nature. And it is also a way of contributing to conservation.
I come to learn about birds and basically enjoy nature and enjoy the ecosystem that you have around us.
I love nature, and one thing about nature is that as much as we depend on nature, nature also depends on us.
I love birds. I grew up watching birds in my neighborhood, and since then it has grown over and over again, and now I want to be a professional bird catcher.
On the walk, I noticed that you were on your phone. I'm assuming that you weren't just sending text messages, but you were actually doing something that relates to the bird walk.
Yes.
Take us through that.
Okay, so there's this app called the Bird Lesser Kenya. It's a customized mobile app that has been developed for the Kenya Bird Map project. So Kenya Bird Map is a project that's trying to map out the distribution of birds across Kenya. And the reason that's so important is because a lot of the data on distribution, like in the guidebooks and stuff, is very outdated, collected like 30 years ago. So we're trying to see, like with all the development and the changes in habitat, farmland expanding, forests cleared, what's happening with the distribution of birds and biodiversity.
So what do you record when you're on a walk?
So this app allows you to record the species that you see. Whenever you see a species or you hear it, you just tap the log button and you record the name of the species, and then you indicate whether you've seen it or you heard it. And it also has a GPS feature which pinpoints where you are when you recorded it. And the reason that's so useful is because, for example, if you're in Nairobi, like if you were to go and manually input your data, you can just say I was at the National Museum. It's easy to find it on Google Earth. But if you're in the middle of Savo East, you can't know where exactly you are. So the app helps you to pinpoint your location so that you don't have to do it manually.
And do you think it'll make a big difference for future bird watchers when they're trying to learn and research more about birds?
Yes, I think it'll be very, very useful because for you to actually make decisions about conservation, you have to first know where are these animals that you're trying to focus on. If you don't even know the distribution of the species that you're trying to conserve, then you can't really do anything.
All right, Sydney, thanks so much, and no doubt you're looking forward to the next bird walk.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you. Now it's time for a break on NTV Wild Talk, but on Wild Guess, we ask you to list 5 bird species seen on the bird walk. List 5 bird species seen on the bird walk. Use the hashtag NTV Wild on Twitter or like our NTV Wild Facebook page and post your answer on the timeline. Private messages won't be considered. The first person to answer correctly wins 2 nights for 2 at the Wajir Mara camp. The winner also gets 1 bottle of wine courtesy of Wines of the World and a gift hamper courtesy of Wildlife Direct. Terms and conditions apply. Last week's lucky winner was Tatur. Welcome back to NTV Wild Talk. Here's a reminder of our wild guess. List 5 bird species seen on the bird walk. List 5 bird species seen on the bird walk. Use the hashtag NTV Wild on Twitter or like our NTV Wild Facebook page and post your answer on the timeline. Private messages won't be considered. The first person to answer correctly wins 2 nights for 2 at the Wajir Mara camp. The winner also gets 1 bottle of wine courtesy of Wines of the World and a gift hamper courtesy of Wildlife Direct. Terms and conditions apply. Last week's lucky winner was Tatur Titus. So now we're done with that wonderful bird walk out there on the museum grounds, and now I am in the bird gallery here at the Nairobi National Museum, where behind me there are lots of stuffed birds, and with me is Titus. He is an ornithologist. It's great to have you with us, Titus. Let's walk and talk and explore this bird gallery.
Thank you.
All right, so Titus, tell me, what is this gallery about? Because what I'm seeing is some incredible birds, but of course they're not real. So tell me more about it.
The gallery is here to display or to show
out the Kenya's diversity of different bird species. And this gallery is not just about Kenya's birds, but it's actually composed of the East African region bird species.
You are an ornithologist. Now, tell us more about that. What do you call the studying of birds, and what does an ornithologist do? Let's walk and talk.
Ornithology is the study of birds, and it entails a lot. Many people will study different aspects of birds. People will study things like ecology of birds, behavior of birds, the lives of birds, and that's all what entails in ornithology, just to understand more about birds in details and their lives.
And why are you an ornithologist? What got you interested?
Birding is very fascinating. Bird is a science, it's an art, and it's a way you can rejuvenate yourself by going out there. I was really interested and passionate about birds when I was really very young, and it's because I was there, and you can see birds everywhere. Birds can be found in wetlands, can be found in forests, can be found in grasslands, and virtually everywhere you go, even including a desert, the birds there.
You know, Fleur talked about some birds being under threat, and I think I recognize this stuffed bird. This is a vulture, correct?
Lappet-faced vulture, yeah, you're correct.
Okay, and tell us more about that. I mean, I don't know, vultures aren't many people's favorites because to many they don't look all that attractive, but they are very important.
Vultures are very important in the wild because they are what you call scavengers. They will clean the environment, especially imagine Masai Mara after migration of wildebeest, it will be stinking because the lions will have killed a lot. So vultures eat almost 70% of what will have killed by the lions, and even what will have just been killed naturally.
And all these birds, of course, are stuffed birds. Where were they found, and how long have they been here for?
This gallery has been here probably for many years, and the birds that were stuffed here, some of them, they're really birds that were found from natural wild, and they were brought in with a very specialist people. Taxidermy is a very specialist method whereby they used to skin the birds, and then they remove the inside bodies, and then they can stuff them to look exactly like what they want.
The detail really is pretty amazing. That's because the outer part of the bird, of course, that we're seeing is real, but
Yes.
it's the inside that's stuffed.
That is stuffed, and we call this one the mounted specimen. And this is the best way you can display things in the nature, the natural things, in an artificial way that people can appreciate and understand what really goes up there in the wild.
Birds, of course, are so different. I mean, we're seeing different colored feathers, we're seeing different shaped beaks and different sizes as well. Tell us more about the variety of birds that you get in Kenya.
Kenya as a nation has a very different species of birds, and we've got, in the world, we have got about 12% of the world's population of birds.
Oh, wow.
For example, the world has about 9,000 species of birds, and we have 1,100 species of birds. Okay. That's a lot of birds, and this is because of the different diversity of habitats we have, ranging from wetlands, forests, not just forests, but lowland forests, highland forests, and so on. So this comes in with all the goodies in terms of bird life.
So many other creatures in Kenya get a lot of love, for example, lions and elephants and rhinos. Why perhaps do you think birds don't get as much attention? Or do they? Am I wrong?
Big cats have really been marketed so well. Yes. But imagine after you've come in Kenya once and 2 times or 3 times and you've been seeing a lion, you need another taste. Sure. But birds are fascinating because as you come in, you won't see everything. Some birds are migrating from Europe, and they're just here at the certain time of the year. So you have to be here at the certain time you can see them.
Okay.
And some of these birds, even the people in Europe don't see them in Europe, right, because when they come here, birds are coming from different sides of Europe, and then they converge here. And then you can see different species, including our native species around.
Sure, and just here, I mean, behind you as well, you can see a variety of species. This looks very familiar. That's the guinea fowl. That's what many people see, but many people eat too.
Yes, as you talk about guinea fowls, it's just not guinea fowls. We have all the different species that we've talked about habitats. Yeah. Looking at this is the crested guinea fowl. That's a forest species. Okay. The vulturine guinea fowl, that's only when you cross to go to places like Samburu. And then the helmeted guinea fowl, which is most diverse. So you find they be found in virtually everywhere.
Are there any birds here perhaps that we saw on our bird walk, because it's difficult for me to be able to tell. I'm a new bird watcher.
In the museum garden, we saw the great sparrowhawk,
Okay.
which is over there, the one
in the corner?
in the corner.
Okay.
And that's an adult and this is a young one.
Right.
Yeah, that's the difference. They have, some people call them black and white or black sparrowhawk, which is actually a wood raptor. It is flying in the wood and mostly feeds on other birds like pigeons and so on and doves. And we also saw the African harrier hawk. African harrier hawk is a very interesting species. And outside there, you can see it trying to take the legs into the crevices and grabbing out things like mice or things like lizards and even raiding nests. It's because it's got a double joint knee and it can rotate the leg all the way around when it's in the crevices and pull out what it can feed. And that's why you can see it always clinging in the nests of other birds. Yeah.
Gosh, all right, let's walk around a little bit more, because it really is interesting. And you mentioned something about migration, and I see here it says the great bird migration. These are different regions. Tell us more about this.
Migration is a very fascinating, as you know, ornithology is a very interesting topic you can talk about, and just talking about the lives of birds. Migration is very interesting. Here in Kenya, so many species, thousands of species found their way here when it's winter back in the Europe. Right. And this is the place where they can come. It's warmer, we are next to the equator, and the temperatures are very cool, and food is very enough, abundant every time. So looking at this one, we've tried to show like a swallow is migrating about 6,000 kilometers from all those northern regions. Oh, wow. And as you can see this, we've got different birds. The smallest being the warbler, the willow warbler, migrating 7,110 kilometers from Europe. God. This is very fascinating. Birds it's very expensive. Flying all that way is very expensive. But birds have to get equipped for that. And as you can see here, it's not only just the swallows or warblers, but it's also water birds here. And what we've been seeing there, the bee eaters over there. So, and also things like, as you've seen, things like birds of prey, also birds of prey migrate, ducks migrate, storks have been known to migrate, and people have got all sorts of interesting, fascinating stories about migration of storks and so on. So all these found here, and we have a total of about 1,117 species migrating from Europe.
Take us through a little bit more about their features.
Birds have got different features. Some of the features give them their names. Look at this. These are the bee eaters, with a bee on the beak. The bee eaters are very fascinating because they have long beaks, and long beaks away from their heads or from their body, so that when they grab the bee, they can put it at the tip of the beak, then they kill the bee, they squeeze off the stench before they swallow them.
So they don't get stung?
They don't get stung, and the stench doesn't get into their body system. Oh, wow. So they are very clever. Birds have got, birds that migrate long distance have got long wings. Because long wings are like somebody's long legs, which can make them walk longer distance without getting tired. Okay. So wings plays a very important role. Birds have got beaks. Different birds like, let's say bee eaters, you've seen them. The ducks, you've seen them. And hawks have got different beaks that are adapted to whatever the conditions or whatever food they eat. The owls here also are very fascinating. If you look at the beak, they are not like the birds the bee eaters or birds of prey. Their beaks is almost to the base of the body, because they just swallow what their prey whole. Okay. They don't dissect it like raptors. Right. They just swallow, and then things get digested, and then they just drop out pellets. The eyes are very important in owls, and the ears. Because
birds must have great vision, right? If they're flying from up above, they must be able to see very well.
Birds of prey have got the greatest vision. They can see 8 times better than our eyes.
And which bird has the best? Is it the eagle?
The eagles.
All right, let's go have a look at the eagle real quick. So this here is the variety of eagles. They look amazing. They're huge.
These are the biggest eagles in Africa, what we call the martial eagle. And this is the adult, and this is the young one. And this is followed close with the ground eagle, which is the biggest also. This is a forest dweller because he feeds on monkeys. He survives in the forest.
On monkeys?
On monkeys. And he has to survive, and they have got huge home ranges. In Nairobi, in places like Karura or Ngong Forest, we do have them.
Really?
Yes, and they've been noted nesting and doing very well, and some even on the edges of Nairobi National Park. But in open areas, we've got martial eagles. This one hunt in more open area, and they breed in more open area, and they'll be hunting on things like dik-diks or gazelles, young gazelles.
Gosh, look at the size of this, and then you can see they hunt on dik-diks or gazelles. That's amazing.
An eagle is an eagle because of the feet, very strong claws to kill, the beak, which he uses to tear the flesh, and the eyes, those to see incredibly 8 times better than my eyes.
Really?
So they can see something really far away. So the vision is so great. The feet is so great, like the hind glow is so huge, which makes it a killing machine. And then the tearing is the beak. So the 3 factors make an eagle compared to other birds.
Gosh, these birds really are fascinating, and I certainly could spend a lot of time in here. You've got to visit if you haven't already. It's a very, very special place. Titus, thank you so much for your time. But a quick question, if somebody wants to get into ornithology, what do they need to study?
Ornithology, you can get into ornithology as a passion, yeah. But also in Kenya, we've got courses you can take, especially at the university. You can do like wildlife management and conservation. And after that, like for your basic degree, then when you advance, you can get into things like biology of conservation, or you can get in specific, you major in studying of a bird, and then you can even climb even on a PhD level to study ornithology. So, however, you can be a birder without a degree or without any, but just by passion, where I started.
Titus, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated.
Most welcome, any other time.
All right, you've been watching NTV Wild Talk. It's been a fascinating journey discovering all the different birds that we have here and, of course, in East Africa. We're shifting focus now, though, and turning our attention to our Wild Pick segment. Here are some of the photos you sent in. Millicent Ken sent in this photo taken at the Meru National Park. She was watching hippos, and that's how she spent her time over the Easter holidays. George Washira sent in a photo taken at a school called Carmel Center in Kayole. He was planting trees at the school as a way of addressing climate change. Dorcas Njoki and MacLeod Chanisa sent in a photo taken at the Impala Park in Kisumu. They were on their honeymoon, and they took this photo because they love wildlife. Alan Muhia sent a photo from the Baringo Snake Park. In this picture, he's holding a snake, and he says he was just visiting. Jerry Moe sent in a photo taken from the Impala Sanctuary in Kisumu. He was interacting with Kimuka, the giraffe, and said that he has a deep love for nature. There's something special about wildlife. And also, here's one from the NTV Nakuru team. Sam Doe and Bridget Ngana planted a tree during a rehabilitation campaign for the Menengai Forest to mark World Environment Day, which took place on the 5th of June. Just like our NTV Wild Facebook page and post your photo celebrating nature on the timeline. Or you can now post your photo on Twitter using the hashtag NTV Wild. Include your full name, tell us where the photo was taken, what you were doing and why. Selected photos will be retweeted, posted on air and on our NTV Wild Facebook page. If you want to take part in a bird walk, they happen every Wednesday, rain or shine, at 8:30 a.m. at the Nairobi National Museum, and sometimes the group visits other venues like the Arboretum or the Uhuru Gardens. You're likely to see about 30 to 40 different birds, and you'll be helped to see, hear and identify them. To participate in the bird walk, all you need to do is join Nature Kenya for just 2,000 shillings a year or 1,200 shillings if you're a student. For more information, contact Nature Kenya using the details below. It's been a super bird walk. I've thoroughly enjoyed it and learnt a lot, and I certainly hope that you have too. And I've just become a member of Nature Kenya. Peter here has my membership card.
Welcome, Smriti. This is your membership.
Thank you so much. And if any of our viewers want to become members of Nature Kenya, Peter, and I urge you to do so, what do they need to do?
You just visit Nairobi National Museum, Nature Kenya membership office, and become a member and get your card within 5 minutes.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. And that's where we leave it on NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyarthi. I'll see you again Tuesday, 10 p.m.